So I was chatting to a client this week, and relatively complex situation, but he's currently got an investment property with a small amount of investment debt. He's cashed out from that to get a deposit for an owner-occupied property, and he's purchased a new owner-occupied property. And I mentioned in passing that the way that it's currently structured, he might actually be costing himself quite a bit of money due to the fact that there's only a small amount of deductible debt on the investment property and quite a large amount of owner-occupied debt, and that by restructuring this or reshuffling things, and by effectively selling that investment property and buying a new one, he may actually be able to put himself in a better position. There's also the fact that the current property is not that great, and there's an opportunity to buy into a property that might have more capital growth, but I wanted to run the numbers assuming two identical properties and assuming that he sells, he pays the transfer cost, and see how this ends up. So here's the assumptions we've got. So owner-occupied interest rate, 5.5%, investments, 6% interest only. His tax rate is 47%, rental yield of 5% irrespective of what property we've got, holding costs of 1%, selling costs of 3%, and stamp duty or purchasing costs of 5%. So here is his current scenario. So he has a home with $1.3 million. He owes about $800,000 on this property. He's also got an investment property worth $850K with $260,000 of investment debt owing on this property. Now, important to note, he also took out a $260,000 loan against this investment property for the purchase of his new owner-occupied home. As a result, because deductibility is based on purpose, not security, that $260K loan is also considered to be non-deductible because it was for the purpose of an owner-occupied purchase. So you can see here on the left here, he's really got two owner-occupied loans. He's got an $800K loan with repayments of $4,542 a month, a $260K loan with repayments of $1,476 a month for total repayments of $6,018 per month, or total annual repayments of $72,216 of non-deductible debt. On the right-hand side, we've got, I guess, the running costs of the investment property. So we've got a 5% rental yield, which equates to $42,500 in rent each year. We've got investment property costs of $8,500 a year, and interest costs of $15,600 per year. And the reason that's so low is because he's only got $260,000 of deductible debt against this property. As a result, the investment property itself is profitable, makes about $18,400 per year. After tax, that puts about $9,752 in his pocket, which if we scroll down to the bottom, his home costs him $72,000 to hold. He makes $9,700 from his investment property. And so net, out of pocket, his two properties cost him $62,464 post-tax to hold each year. Now, what we've done over here is I've run the scenarios as if he was to sell that property. Now, he sells that property, he pays the selling cost of $25,500, he clears the loans, so there's $260K of owner-occupied debt and $260K of investment debt, clears both of these, and he's left with $304,500 of cash, which he then uses to reduce his owner-occupied loan. He's then going to get a new loan to borrow 105% of a new purchase of $850,000. Obviously, he's got plenty of options here. He could buy less, he could buy more, he could buy two properties, whatever that may be, but we're trying to keep things apples to apples. So he's buying 105% of a $850K purchase. Now, in this new situation, he's now got a $495,500 owner-occupied loan because the $260K that he had over here was cleared by the sale of the investment property, and the $800,000 was reduced to $495,000 because of the fact that he took that $300,000 profit from the sale of his investment property and paid down his owner-occupied debt. As a result, his repayments are $2,813 per month or $33,756 per year. Now, he goes and buys a new investment property for $850K. Now, he's now got a loan of $892,500 because he's had to borrow 105%. Now, in reality, this loan would actually be split. We'd put 80% against the investment loan, the remaining balance against the owner-occupied to avoid cross-collateralizing. But for simplicity's sake, we've got an $892,500 tax-deductible loan. Now, the rental return is the exact same, $42,500. The holding cost is the exact same, $8,500. But the interest cost, instead of being $15,600 like it was before, is now $53,550. Now, the reason for that is because the entire purchase price, including the stamp duty, is borrowed, which means the entire amount is tax deductible. Now, instead of making a profit of $18,400 per year, this investment property is now making a loss of $19,550. However, when it's a loss, you can claim that against your taxable income. Because he's on the highest tax bracket, he actually gets to negative gear that and he claims some of that tax back. So he actually gets a $9,188 deduction in his tax bill, which means the net loss on that investment property is $10,362. Now, you might be thinking, Esha, this is terrible. You've taken this guy who was making a net profit of $9,752. You've made him pay 3% of selling costs, 5% of purchasing price, and you've put him in a loss of $10,362. However, the key thing that we need to remember is that his owner-occupied repayments have gone from $72,216 per year to $33,756, and his net post-tax position has gone from $62,464 per year, which was the old holding costs for 2 properties, to $44,118 per year. So this puts almost $20,000 back in his pocket per year, and also allows him to optimize the property that he holds. His current property is okay, but it's not amazing, and the forecasted capital growth over the next few years might be 3-4%. This allows him to buy a similar priced property that will have greater capital growth. But even ignoring the difference in capital growth, we've got a $18,000 per year better post-tax position by simply replacing a property with a new one, restructuring the debt, and ensuring as much of your debt as possible is tax deductible.